There is a moment in Justice League Unlimited where Batman says something to Superman that the writing room buried inside a bigger scene. Most people missed it. They shouldn't have. It wasn't a threat, it wasn't a tactical critique, it wasn't even an argument. It was flat, uninflected Batman voice that makes everything sound like a court verdict, and it contained more truth about Clark Kent than anything Lois Lane ever wrote in the Daily Planet. Batman said, in essence, you are the most dangerous thing in this universe. Not because of what you are, because of what you make people believe. The room moved on. The episode continued. Darkseid attacked something, someone flew through a wall, the score swelled. Nobody stopped. Nobody asked what he meant. They should have. Because Bruce Wayne has spent his entire life studying one question. What happens when the thing protecting you is also the thing that will eventually destroy you? He studied it in the alley where his parents died. He studied it in every criminal he profiled, every system he dismantled, every corrupt institution he burned down wearing a different face. He is, before anything else, a man who understands how catastrophic it is to trust the wrong thing completely. And for the last 20 years of animated DC history, he has been watching the entire world trust Superman completely. He has never stopped being afraid of what that means. Over the next 10 minutes, we are going back through the friendship, the alliance, the arguments, and the silences, and we are going to show you what Batman saw, and why he was right, and why nobody listened. Before we build the case, let us be absolutely fair to the man in the cape. Superman, across the entire DC animated universe, is everything the mythology promised. He is not a character who coasts on power. Watch Superman the animated series from the beginning, and what strikes you immediately is not the heat vision or the flight or the invulnerability. It is the restraint. In episode after episode, Clark Kent is surrounded by situations where the fastest, cleanest solution would be to simply stop holding back, and he never takes it. He calibrates. He calculates the minimum amount of force necessary and then applies less, because he would rather take damage himself than risk hurting someone who doesn't deserve it. That is not the behavior of a weapon. That is the behavior of someone who has thought deeply about what it means to be powerful in a world that isn't. Watch him in Justice League, the early seasons, before the League expands, when it is still 7 people in a satellite trying to hold the world together. Superman does not lead by dominating. He leads by showing up, by being the first through the door and the last to leave, by absorbing the opening hit so that everyone else has a half-second longer to think. That half-second saves lives constantly. Nobody tracks it. Nobody could. Watch In Brightest Day, the episode where a new Green Lantern is struggling with the weight of the ring, with the fear that he might not be enough. Superman does not give a speech about power or destiny. He sits with the man and talks about doubt, about how the fear never fully goes away, about how you suit up anyway. This is Clark Kent underneath the symbol, a person of genuine emotional intelligence, capable of extraordinary empathy, who has chosen the harder thing at every fork in the road. The Justice League Unlimited version of Superman, the one audiences watched for 2 more seasons as the team expanded and the threats escalated, is a genuinely mature hero. He makes mistakes and owns them. He disagrees with the League's methods and says so directly, rather than going behind their backs. When the Cadmus arc forces the League to confront whether they've become too powerful, Superman is the first to argue for accountability, the first to say that even he should have limits placed on him by democratic institutions. He knows he is dangerous. He says it himself, and he keeps showing up anyway, because the alternative is a world without anyone willing to stand in the breach. By the numbers, Superman the Animated Series, 4 seasons. Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, 5 seasons combined. More solo episodes, more defining story arcs, more emotionally resonant moments than any other character in the entire animated universe. The fandom consistently rates his animated portrayal as the most faithful, most complete rendering of the character in any medium. He earned that. He earned all of it. And Batman watched every single moment of it with the quiet, relentless attention of a man building a file. Not out of jealousy, out of dread. Here's the thing about Bruce Wayne that people miss when they reduce him to prep time and paranoia. He is not afraid of Superman because of what Superman might do intentionally. He is afraid of what Superman might do without meaning to at all. Batman's entire operating philosophy, the thing that separates him from every other superhero in the animated universe, is that he plans for the system, not the person. He does not trust that good intentions will produce good outcomes. He does not trust that power, wielded with love, will remain safe. He trusts structures, contingencies, mechanisms that work even when the person inside them fails. This is why the Brother file exists. For anyone who missed it in Justice League Unlimited, the Cadmus arc, Batman built a protocol, a database containing detailed plans for neutralizing every member of the Justice League, including Superman, in the event that any of them went rogue. It was kept secret. It was never discussed. It was, by Bruce's own admission, something he hoped would never be needed. When the League discovered it, they were furious. Superman was hurt, and Batman stood in front of every one of them and said, "I was right to build it, and I would build it again." Now, stop there, because that moment is the entire argument in miniature. The League looked at the file and saw betrayal. Batman looked at the file and saw the only responsible thing a person with his knowledge could do. The League saw a friend who didn't trust them. Batman saw a system that needed a failsafe. Who was right? Watch what happens 11 episodes later. The Justice Lord's arc had already shown everyone exactly what the League looked like without that failsafe. A parallel universe, a dead Lex Luthor, a Superman who crossed the line with complete moral certainty and never looked back. It was not a gradual descent. It was not corruption creeping in over years. It was one decision made by a good man who had finally stopped believing that the line existed for him. Batman in that universe had no contingency plan. He had a prison cell. Back in the main universe, the moment the Brother file was leaked, the moment the public saw that the Justice League had been keeping detailed plans to neutralize itself, the political fallout nearly destroyed everything. Cadmus used it. Governments used it. The story became not, "Our heroes have accountability mechanisms," but "Our heroes don't trust each other," which is exactly what Batman had predicted would happen if the file ever went public. He had kept it secret not because he was ashamed of it, but because he understood that the world was not ready to hear that even Superman needed a contingency, that even the best, most moral, most restrained version of absolute power still required someone to be watching. Clark never fully forgave him for it, and here is where the friendship between these two men, one of the richest, most complex relationships in animated history, starts to reveal its fracture. Superman trusts people. It is, genuinely, one of his most admirable qualities. He extends good faith. He believes in the capacity of individuals to make the right choice. He meets people where they are and assumes the best about where they're going. Batman does not trust people. He trusts evidence. He trusts patterns. He trusts the documented history of what power does to individuals over time, regardless of their starting morality. These are not compatible worldviews. They work across 5 seasons of television because both men respected each other enough to occupy the tension without resolving it. Batman did not try to make Superman more suspicious. Superman did not try to make Batman warmer. They pulled against each other, and the friction, somehow, kept them both honest. But watch what happens when the tension is removed. Watch the episodes where Batman is absent, sidelined, off on a solo mission, operating somewhere the League's cameras don't reach. Watch how the group dynamics shift, how decisions that would have been challenged go unchallenged, how Superman's certainty, which is always present but usually balanced by Bruce's deliberate doubt, expands to fill the space. Not arrogantly, that is important to say. Superman is never arrogant in the traditional sense. He does not believe he is infallible. He simply, in Batman's absence, has one fewer person asking the uncomfortable question before the decision gets made. And uncomfortable questions, asked a moment before a decision, change the decision. Asked a moment after, they become investigations. Batman was not just a teammate. He was a structural element. He was the friction in the machine that kept the machine from overheating. And the machine never knew it needed him. That is the crack. Not a moment of ego, not a catastrophic failure of judgment, just the slow, invisible accumulation of decisions made without someone in the room asking, "But what if we're wrong?" Superman, surrounded by people who love him, respect him, and would follow him anywhere, produces a Superman who is, incrementally, less capable of imagining that he might need to be stopped. Batman saw it happening in real time. He documented it. He told nobody. Because he knew that the moment he said it out loud, Clark would hear it as a lack of faith rather than an act of love. He was right about that too. Superman says, power can be good if the person wielding it is good. Batman says, power requires limits that exist independent of the person wielding it. Both of them are right, but only one of them built the failsafe, and when the failsafe was discovered, only one of them was blamed. That is the fall. Not Superman's. Clark never had a single dramatic collapse in the animated universe, and that is precisely the point. The fall is quieter. It is the fall of the assumption that a good enough person with enough power is a sufficient substitute for institutional accountability. The animated universe spent 5 seasons building that assumption into the audience. Then it spent 2 seasons very carefully showing them why it was wrong. Batman knew from episode 1. Here is what it comes down to. Batman is the only member of the Justice League who joined the team already planning for the day it would need to be dismantled. Everyone else joined because they believed in the mission. Bruce joined because he understood that missions fail, people change, and power without a circuit breaker eventually shorts out. He is not cynical. That is the misreading that the animated universe's writers fought against constantly. Cynicism is the belief that things will always go wrong. Batman's position is more precise and more demanding than cynicism. He believes that things can go wrong, and that the responsible response to that possibility is preparation rather than faith. Faith in Superman's goodness is not a structural defense. Batman knew this, and the proof arrived in the final arc of Justice League Unlimited. When the Cadmus conspiracy unraveled, when it became clear that a shadow government had spent years building weapons specifically designed to counter the Justice League, the public's reaction was not universal condemnation of Cadmus. For a significant portion of the civilian population, it was relief. Relief that someone had been thinking about it. Relief that somewhere, in some classified facility, there were contingency plans for the day the most powerful beings on Earth decided that democracy was an inefficiency they no longer had time for. They were not afraid of Superman's bad intentions. They were afraid of his good ones, and they were right to be. He built the contingency. He kept the file. He stood in the room when Clark found out and didn't apologize. Because Batman does not apologize for being correct. He just waits, patient, watching, already 3 moves ahead of the disaster that hasn't happened yet. Darkseid thought he understood Superman. He saw the power. He mapped the weakness. He built a plan around both. But Darkseid, for all his cosmic intelligence, for all his centuries of conquest, for all his talent for identifying the structural failures in civilizations before they could identify them in themselves, Darkseid never understood what made Superman genuinely dangerous. Bruce Wayne did. It is not the heat vision. It is the hope. The specific, devastating, completely sincere hope that Superman carries into every room he enters. The hope that good people making good choices will produce good outcomes. That is the thing that will one day cost everything. Because hope is contagious. And a world that has caught Superman's hope has stopped building the institutions that function when hope isn't enough. Batman was right about that. He has always been right about that. He will keep being right about that, quietly, in a cave somewhere, with a file that gets longer every year, and a partner who will never fully understand why Bruce keeps adding to it. The world calls it paranoia. Bruce calls it Tuesday. And somewhere above Metropolis, Clark is flying. And below him, 8 billion people are not afraid. And that exact feeling, that particular piece, is the most dangerous thing in the DC universe. Batman knows. He has always known. Nobody listened. Go back and watch the moment Bruce hands Clark the file. Not the fight, not the fallout. Watch Bruce's face when Clark opens it. He is not afraid of what Clark will do. He is afraid Clark still doesn't understand why the file exists. He was right about that too. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let us know in the comments which character you want us to cover next.